Before I start, I would like to point out that yesterday I bought this Bite Beauty liquid lipstick for $10 because coupon gang raw as heck in this household. That has nothing to do with the video. I just wanted you to be jealous of me. Oh yes. Hey sis, let me bring you out to a normal distance. Hello. Today is the day of my palette collection film. I'm very excited. I love my palettes. They are my infant children and I always treat them with the utmost respect.
Why the fuck you lying?
So the way I was originally going to film this video is I would pick up a palette, give a little mini review, maybe talk about my least favorite and favorite shades in the palette, and then I was gonna do my go-to look with that palette. And then I realized that's not really how I use my eyeshadow palettes. I almost never use one single palette for a look. Whenever I'm putting together an eyeshadow look and I'm sitting here at my desk, at the end of it, I almost always have 3 different palettes and like at least one single eyeshadow open. That's just how I do. I like to mix all the colors together. This collection is a team. It's an elite squad with a specific set of skills. This look in particular that I have on right now was crafted with 2 different palettes, but within that, some of the shades are from my Z palette, so that's like 2 extra palettes. In essence, what I'm trying to say is I'm not going to be doing mini tutorials in this video because it wouldn't make sense. Why don't we actually get into things? Why don't we get the negativity out of the way? Let's start with my least favorite. This is my ABH Cosmetics Take Me Back to Brazil palette. It frustrates me deeply. I think that the formula for all of the shades in this palette, including the shimmers, is just not quite up to par with the other shadow formulas that ABH Cosmetics routinely puts out. I'll talk about that a little bit later when I get into talking about my Zodiac palette, but I just wish that they would update this formula. I keep this palette around because it's my only brights palette right now. May or may not have something coming my way that there will be a review for. I don't know. It's useful and it's not like the shadows in here are complete basura, but at least on my skin tone, I don't really get the pigmentation I want from these. I have to use a white base when I use these shadows, and just to drive home my point about how annoying they are, I'm going to swatch them with no primer, so you'll see. The light pinks swatched really weakly, but work fine over a white base. The dark pinks are actually pretty great. All of the yellows are really disappointing, and this pastel orange shade is easily the worst shade in the palette. The greens, once you hit dark lime green, are pretty great actually, considering the quality of the palette in general is not amazing. The blues that are pure mattes are pretty well performing, but for some reason a lot of the darker blues are these vaguely metallic satin shadows, I think you would call them. The lavender on the end is also that same formula. The palette seems like it's an all matte palette with a line of shimmers. It's not. It has a ton of satin shadows in it that are all terrible.
What is Gucci, guys? Just realized I forgot to swatch the black shade and the 2 transformer shades. The 2 transformer shades are awful and have absolutely 0 pigmentation, and the black shade is pretty great. Back to the video.
So that's one of the reasons why I always like rant against this palette so hard. It's fine, it works. I got it on sale for $12 at Ulta. It's normally $18. Talking about least favorite and favorite shades in this palette. My least favorite shade is easy. Like 100% the simplest choice I've ever had to make. This orange shade right here can meet me in the pit. I hate this. It's just dust. It's just orange dust. It's like Cheeto dust pressed into a pan. I hate it. A favorite shade is actually more difficult to pick than I originally thought it would be. Not because I hate every shade in this palette, but because I like a lot of the shades in this palette. I just wish they were a little bit better. I think the one that always comes through for me is probably this deep purple conquered grape shade right here. This one is kind of consistently pretty high performing. Like, that's great for a purple eyeshadow in a not phenomenal palette. There might be another brights palette in my life soon enough. I can't wait. I know I'm gonna get comments about how I'm being too harsh on this palette, and I probably am, but in any case, whatever. That's the ABH Cosmetics Take Me Back to Brazil palette. That is my one brights palette. Okay, let's talk about the Modern Renaissance palette from Anastasia Beverly Hills. I feel like if you've ever watched anyone's video about anything, they found a way to bring up the Modern Renaissance palette. The Modern Renaissance is an absolute superstar of the YouTube beauty community, and when I first got it, I thought that was pretty deserved. If I could depot shades from this palette without completely destroying it, which, judging by how softly pressed these shadows are, is pretty much an absolute logical impossibility, I would, because there's a handful of shades in here that that I never use. The shades Raw Sienna, Tempera, and Golden Ochre are too light for me and I never touch them. The reason Tempera has huge pan in it is because one afternoon I was sitting with this palette and I was like, good gosh, I've never used the shade Tempera. Let me see how long it'll take for me to swirl a fluffy brush in this palette just to see how deep these pans are. I've still never used Tempera. I don't like it. It's easily my least favorite shade in the palette. It's just way too light. I have no use for it whatsoever. Favorite shade? Oh girl, my favorite shade in this palette is far and away Buon Fresco. This is my darling. This like cool mauve minute. It's so subtle but so pretty and it's like a little lavendery. Other highlights of this palette for me are Antique Bronze and Venetian Red are both really fun for me to wear as single shadows on my eyelid. I'm going to just reuse the clip of me swatching this from my original eyeshadow collection video from like 8 months ago because nothing's changed. It's the exact same palette. So enjoy a clip of my arm many months younger, many moons ago. Also, my palette is absolutely filthy. Let's zoom in on that, why don't we? Look at this. This is what I'm talking about. Like, I disrespect the hell out of all of my palettes. I love the Modern Renaissance. And having this palette, which was kind of like my flagship Warms palette before I welcomed a couple other ones into my life, really stopped me from buying a lot of releases over the course of this year and last year because I would look at them and if there was anything berry adjacent in it, I'd be like, well, I have the Modern Renaissance. What's the point? I'm gonna get eyeshadow on my jumpsuit. Oh. Shall we switch things up and talk about a highlighter palette? I think we should. Nope, that's Solar Flare. This is the BH Cosmetics Blacklight highlighter palette. This was free with the same order in which I purchased the Solar Flare palette that I'll talk about later. I don't like this palette at all. I had seen it on the website for a couple of months and I always was curious about trying it because I was curious about trying colorful highlighters and I never purchased it because somewhere in my heart of hearts I knew that's gonna look really terrible on your skin, sis. So I just allowed it to be sent to me and I'm really glad that I never bought it on its own. You'll notice that there's a whole bunch of dents in my highlighters. Why? Because they all got hard pan just from being swatched like once. Really great stuff. To be quite honest, as much as I love BH Cosmetics' eyeshadow palettes, I really don't like their highlighters. These are very like white based colorful highlighters. So when I wear them, they look very chalky on my skin. Of these shades, the only one that I can actually wear as a highlighter and have it like halfway decent is On Point, which is the darkest shade. It's kind of purple. I never reach for this whenever I want to put on a highlighter. The one nice thing about these is that they make really great inner corner highlights if you spray your brush. If you are a person of color, I wouldn't recommend this. If you are a person who doesn't like really sparkly highlighters, I wouldn't recommend this. If you're a person who doesn't like fallout from your highlighters, I wouldn't recommend this. Let's do some swatches. I love the idea of this palette, and if it was executed with a better formula, I think I would really like it. But my goodness, it's very low quality. I would say of these, Strobe is probably my least favorite shade. In talking about On Point, I guess it's my favorite in that it is my least favorite. Okay, let's go ahead and get these off my skin. Who wants to go next? I would like to summon my lip palette. This is my Anastasia Beverly Hills Lipstick Palette. I got this for half off. I think this is very fun. I don't use it super often, but when I do, it's like a lifesaver. The only difficulty with this is that Anastasia's lipstick formulas are very matte and very dry. So my best advice if you have this or you have Anastasia lipsticks is put them on over a little bit of a lip balm. Give them something to slide on. They're gonna blend way easier. If you try to put these on dry lips, you're gonna tear your lips apart. It's gonna stain my arm, but I'll swatch it. I love the shade number 8 right up here. The yellow is primary 4. I quite like that one as well. It's very fun to play around with. I quite enjoy this palette, and I'm very glad that I only paid $24 for it instead of $48. Next up, I want to briefly talk about one of the newest and most exciting additions to my collection, my Paleo palette from Clionadh Cosmetics. Clionadh Cosmetics is a small, 2-person run indie brand based out of Canada that I discovered on Instagram. I'm not going to swatch it or talk too much about it because I just actually about almost a month ago, less than a month ago, uploaded a dedicated review on this palette, including swatches of all of these shades and 2 looks and my complete thoughts on the palette. I will link that up in the tarjetas. Watch it if you like to. I worked quite hard on it and I'd recommend you do. But in short, this palette is gorgeous. I'm wearing a shade from it on my eyes right now. It's a deep eggplant plum shade. Fossil is somewhere up in my crease with 3 different purples from other palettes. Like I said at the beginning, this look was a team effort. We love teamwork in this household. This palette is a superstar. All right, who's next? Solar Flare palette, BH Cosmetics. This is a fairly new palette to me. Like I think I mentioned before, I've only had it for about a month at this point, but I think this is absolutely lovely. This is an 18 pan baked shadow palette, and I'd been really interested in for a while before I bought it because of these olive tones down here and these orange tones up top. I think these shadows work the best on top of a glitter glue. The one that I use is the NYX glitter glue primer. I don't know if I have a least favorite. To be quite honest, I don't think I've used this palette enough to really develop a beef with one of the shadows. My favorite is definitely Fireball up in this top row. That is the most orange of the shadows. That's lovely. That's easily my favorite shadow to use. Second favorite is definitely this bronze shade right up here in the top corner, Anti-Gravity. Oh my god, I love it. I love using it. Let's do some swatches. It's essentially a palette full of neutral shimmers, so if that's not something you need at all, yeah, skip it, definitely. If you want to do something softer, these are great shadows for that. The swatches are a little weak, doesn't swatch amazingly, performs pretty nicely. I'm a big fan of this palette. Let's do something teeny tiny. This is my ColourPop Make Up Your Mind palette. It's a little baby palette. 6 little shadows. We have a salmon, a silver, turquoise, yellow, gold, purple, and a maroon purple plum really with a blue shift. This is phenomenal. These are really almost wet to the touch, very dimethicone metallic shadows. This is the type of palette that someone who lacks vision might say, you can't do a full look with this palette. Your definition of a full look is very limiting. For example, I very frequently take this shadow, which is called Over It, Sweet Angel Baby, and I place it all over the lid with just mascara and it looks fire flames. This is Over It. Look at that. Oh my god. Easily my favorite. This is so beautiful. Next to that is the silver shade Toasted, which is my second favorite. Girl, that's like sexy. I've said before on my channel, I love silver eyeshadow. This is my favorite that I own. Next up, Inside Out is the salmon pink shade. It's whatever, honestly. It's fine. It's pretty basic. Coming up next, the shade BRB. See, I almost swatched it right on top of the salmon. That's how basic and uninspiring it is. I forgot it was even there. BRB is pretty beautiful. Next up is Forever Young, the yellow gold. This is my second least favorite of this palette. I think it's not quite as pigmented as the other ones, and I also do not like yellow golds. So that is a personal issue of mine that I'm working to deal with. And lastly, we have the standard metallic purple. That one is called Lock and Key. It's fine, but with this shade in the palette, I often forget about this one. I think I can say with confidence this is my favorite ColourPop product that I own. And I have a growing collection. I have 4 Super Shock shadows, 1 pressed powder shadow. You gotta do this now? It is 5:24 in the evening, okay? You should have been done that, all right? I'm so sorry about that. And I have You drove all that way just to back up again? Better pick a direction. Love her. Making this is a little bit more difficult than I thought it would be, so why don't I perk up my mood by talking about my favorite palette? This is my ABH Cosmetics Zodiac palette. I got this on sale at Ulta for about $17. It's normally $22, I believe. Pigmentation on the matte shades and blendability of the matte shades is out of this world. The baked shades are very glittery. Some of them are a bit smoother than others, but in essence, they're all pretty fantastic. The shade Pisces is actually one of my favorites. I love that Pisces is not blue. I think it's a beautiful shade. It's this sort of bronzy shade. Okay, well the swatch still came out. This has a slight curve. There it is. Oh my goodness, it's so lovely. It's like this rosy bronze and it's just beautiful by itself on the lid. Choosing a favorite other than Pisces, it's Capricorn. Yep. Oh my god, this like, oh, super metallic, like army green. My actual least favorite shade in this palette is the center highlight. I can't do anything with this. I can't wear this on my cheekbones because it's like stark white. Another thing I really enjoy about this palette is its layout. I like that it's in a little circle, but more so than that, I like that each of the shades are in pairs. I don't think it's designed to do this, but you could theoretically make a look out of putting whatever matte shade is here in your crease, blending it out, diffusing it, and then popping the baked shade on your lid. And for some of these, you'd get like a pretty neutral look. Like for Pisces, the combination of Pisces and Pisces 2 is a warm dark brown in the crease with a bronze on the lid, which has been done to death, but is a classic look. Almost ditto for Scorpio. Scorpio's like a warmer version of that same concept. One of my favorite. God, what the heck? But then you get interesting ones like Sagittarius, the combination of Sagittarius green and then burnt orange. That could be something. And then my absolute favorite is probably the combination. It's a tie between the combination of Taurus and Taurus 2 and Aries 2. That could be fun, definitely. And then oh man, just like the darkness, like, ugh, the mermaid vibes. But like deep sea mermaids that'll like pull you underneath and drown you. Love that. Just gonna get these swatches tattooed on my arms so you guys know that I'm that serious about how much I love that palette. We're down to the final three, which means I'm that much closer to being able to eat ramen. This is the ABH Cosmetics and It's My Ray Ray collaboration palette that came out I think around last November. I'm just gonna address the elephant in the room real quick. My palette looks very different from how your palette would look if you purchased this yourself. The reason why is this palette is supposed to have an accompanying face palette. Why doesn't yours have an accompanying face palette, Nisi Pisa? Great question. I cut it off with an X-Acto blade. Remember how I said I don't respect my makeup? This is a prime example of that. Basically, I cut off the face palette, which came with 3 highlighters and 3 contour shades, for a couple reasons. One, I don't contour ever. So the contour shades didn't really do me any good. They have the same very soft, very blendable consistency as the eyeshadows in this palette, which makes them way too pigmented to use for any like soft structural contouring anyway. I actually still have 2 of the contour shades, but they are in one of my Z palettes. The reason I saved them is because the second darkest and darkest contour shades are phenomenal transition shades for me because they're just dark, cool tone browns. And the highlighters, I did save one of them just because it's a very unique color. I almost never wear it as a highlighter. If I do wear it, I wear it as an inner corner highlight on my eyes. And it's the white shade that has a gold shift. That's also in a Z palette. I'll show you it later. Other 2 highlighters were a bronze highlighter and a sort of icy pink, very sparkly, and were super softly pressed. So if you dip your brush in there, you get like a massive amount of kick up. I was like, you know what? Just get rid of them, you know? Another reason that I cut off the face palette part of this palette was because I travel with this palette exclusively. I don't bring any other palette with me when I go anywhere outside of my home. Because even when it still had the attached face palette, it was sleek enough that it could fit in my little makeup travel pouch and it wasn't an issue. But when I was using it, and it has a huge, thick little mirror in here, so I would use it as a mirror. I would do my little makeup, whatevers. And the face palette would just be like down here, swinging precariously, threatening to spill glitter or dark brown contour powder on whatever I was wearing or whatever bed I was sitting on or wherever I was. And it was that combined with the fact that I just never used it that I was like, you know what, chop. I'm not saying that if you have this palette, you should slice off the face palette, but I'm saying I did, and I'm much happier with the palette now. I was already impressed with the formula, but like using it is a lot more fun now. It's just so thin and sleek and small and perfect. I think this palette has the same matte shade formula as the Zodiac palette does, which is absolutely dandy because, as I just said, I am head over heels for the Zodiac palette. Shimmers in here are something else entirely. They're beautiful, like wet to the touch, dimethicone, very pigmented shimmers. They're not all amazing. All the mattes have the exact same formula and are perfect, but the shimmers are a bit interesting. The first one is Angel, which is a white shimmer with a gold shift to it. Very pigmented, lovely, a fun inner corner highlight. We love Angel. Next up, Allison is sort of the champagne color. It's a lot smoother. It's not quite as chunky in the glitter department as Angel is. It's not quite as crumbly. When you pick it up with a brush, you don't get as much kick up. Tiffany is the next shade. It's stunning, and I think it has the exact same formula as Allison because it's also pretty smooth. Fairy Tale is the next shade. It's a bronze shimmer that feels as smooth as Allison and Tiffany, but isn't quite as pigmented. See how it's like a lot paler? It's easily the weakest of the 5 shimmers. But the next one, this next one is Passion. It feels even chunkier than Angel. You can almost kind of push it around a little bit. It's very squishy. But sis, oh, you gotta be joshing me, man. With that pigmentation, you gotta be freaking joshing me. I can dang near bring this all the way around my arm. Every single time I use this palette, even if I'm using like the light browns and the red, I try desperately to find some way to use Passion. This dead ass, that might be my favorite eyeshadow in my entire collection. I've never worn it alone on the lid. I want to do that one day. I feel like that would be like kind of dangerous. Let's talk about least favorite shade. You may have picked up now, I have kind of a complex about really, really light eyeshadows, and it's because I hate when there's more than like one eyeshadow in a palette that is too light for me to wear. There's only 2 shades in here that are really too light for me to do anything with, and those are predictably these 2 shades up here, Nudist and Pancake. Like, what am I gonna do with these? What am I ever gonna do with these? After Pancake is Mousse. Control Freak, that's a terrible swatch, wow. Black Beauty. Spice, these are both Spice. Midnight, which is my go-to transition when I'm traveling. Sunset. Friday, this is my favorite of the mattes, definitely. And Connie. I'm just absolutely head over heels in love with this palette. We've almost made it through the wilderness. The only palettes left are my 2 magnetic palettes. So let's go on a little walking tour and I'll tell you what's in these little babies. Then we'll do some swatches and then I get to eat noodles. This is my matte Z palette. This blue shade is from the Milani Vital Brights palette. It's a beautiful, beautiful Eve Klein blue. Oh, I love it and I need to use it more. I just want to show you. Layers on itself so nicely. Depotting this was a horrific experience in which I almost lit myself on fire. You can tell there's a huge chunk out of this palette. I dropped it while I was trying to depot the shade and it did not forgive me for that. This is the shade Mocha. This is the middle of the 3 contour shades from the It's My Ray Ray palette I just showed you. This is a really fantastic transition shade because it's functionally the exact same color as my skin. But it's not too cool. It doesn't make me look dead on my eyes, which is great. I always look for that. I love looking alive because I am alive. Down here we have the darkest contour shade from that same palette. This is the shade Brownie Bite that I've used dozens of times. It has a cute little divot in the middle, like a little navel. Deep dark brown. We love her. Up here is the single shadow Kush from NYX. This is the one forest green I own and I'm absolutely in love with it. Oh my god. It's what I'm wearing on my eyes today. Right there. That's Kush. Up here, we have the one yellow shadow that hasn't totally and completely let me down. What's up, Sugar Pill? What's good? This is 19 from Kiko. It's fine. You gotta use like a cream white base with this, and I tried to use it without doing that today, and it didn't work. That's why I have a gold shadow on. This is going to be a yellow look, but It did not happen. That did not happen because I did not use a white base. These two beautiful angel babies down here are from the Juvia's Place Zulu palette. I did depot that palette. I saved these two shades and then the 3 metallic shades. This is amazing. This like turquoise blue. Like, look at that. Oh my goodness. It's such a unique shade of turquoise too. I'm absolutely in love with it. It's got some chunks taken out of it because it's really softly pressed. So every time I looked at the palette the wrong way, a chunk of that blue would fall out. And then next to it is one of my favorite purples, like I said, from the Zulu palette. Swatches terribly, performs pretty nicely, you know? So those are my matte children. This is my Shimmery Z palette. Let's talk about who is in here. This right up here is the highlighter shade from that discontinued BH Cosmetics palette, the Bronze Paradise. It's a super icy pink and I don't ever wear it, but every time I think about decluttering the pan, I put it on and I'm like, all right, what if I have a total ice queen moment in the dead of winter when I'm pale enough for this not to look absurd and I need an icy pink highlighter? Also, it's like a single pan of eyeshadow, so it's not like it's taking up a ton of space. So I keep it around because it's kind of gorgeous. Next to that over here by itself is a single shadow from City Colors that a friend of mine got in a subscription box and then gave to me. It's by itself because it smells like crayons, like really super strongly of like the bucket of crayons that was in everybody's kindergarten classroom. But it's so pretty that I keep it around. It looks metallic, but it swatches pretty satiny. But it's actually easily build-up-able. It's a fun shade to wear alone on the lid. The shade is It's a Girl, and I've checked on City Colors websites and I can't find it. Theoretically, it's still available. The shadow line that it's from is still available. These 4 shades are from another discontinued BH Cosmetics palette. Freaking sorry. The palette they're from is called the Wild and Radiant Bronzing and Illuminating palette, and they are theoretically 2 highlighters and 2 bronzers, but for me they are 4 highlighters because if I were going to bronze, I would not do it with something glittery. I like these actually. I know I've spent this entire video talking smack about BH Cosmetics as highlighters, but these ones are actually not bad, probably because they're baked. But I almost never wear these just because it's easier for me to just use one of my cheek highlighters that are just in my top drawer. I keep all my palettes in a lower drawer in my nightstand. And so it's easier for me to just grab one of those than to get this palette, open it up, and choose one of 4. But they are pretty. This green hiding out right here is from the same Vital Brights palette that the matte blue in my Matte Z palette is from. This one also has a big ass chunk taken out of it. I swear to God, if I had actually filmed the process of me trying to depot shadows from that palette, you guys would have like reported me to, I don't know, like the fire marshal. It was the most irresponsible thing I've ever done, truthfully. Green shade. Beautiful. Almost every time I wear a green look, I find some way to use this shade. 3 shadows right here are all from the same Bronze Paradise palette that this highlighter shade is from. This blue slaps, honestly. Like, this is a bop of an eyeshadow. The one next to that is a super basic classic bronze that I keep around in case I need a super basic classic bronze. And then this one after it is like this really cool like blackened bronze that I really gotta find a use for because it's like a very cool color and I really like it. Next to that we have my 2 freebie shadows from Clionadh Cosmetics that came with my Paleo palette. This deep purple is a stunner called Half-Life. Oh yes! The final corner is this one over here. This shade right here is the single highlighter from the It's My Ray Ray palette that I saved. This one is called Moonlight, and it's very similar to the shadow Angel in that same palette. It's a white with a very strong yellow shift. It's very interesting to wear on the eye. I would never wear this as a highlighter. These 3 that make up this corner are the 3 metallic shades from the Zulu palette from Juvia's Place. This one is the rose gold from that palette. It is the only true rose gold shadow I own, and I'm like writing sonnets to this shadow in my dreams. I just think it's so gentle and beautiful and looks wonderful alone on the lid. Got the blue, which is fairly similar to the other icy blue that's in this palette. But I would say it's a little lighter and a little bit a bit more pigmented. I would say the superstar of the 3 of them is this green. This one, like the Milani green, is one that I always find a way to shoehorn into green eyeshadow looks. It's just so cool. I like having the 3 of them here because it reminds me of the Powerpuff Girls. Oh my god, did we do it? Did we make it to the end of the freaking road? Yes! That was my entire palette collection, including 1 highlighter palette and 1 lipstick palette. Let's get all the kids back together and take a freaking thumbnail. Oh my god.
I was stacking the palettes to do a little final shot, and Modern Renaissance slipped out of the pile, and what's that? Cat-like freaking reflexes caught it betwixt my knees. I'm absolutely an Olympian for this. Simone Biles who?
No, wait, I don't want the highlighter palette to be front and center. We gotta have Zodiac on there for clickbait, because everyone knows about Zodiac. I love being a parent. So guess what? That's all I have. Okay. So I'm a little lemon of content, and you've squeezed me dry. Before you leave, I'm gonna need you to do a quick little favor for me. If you could go ahead and have an amazing day, that would be so pigmented. And please consider scribbling to my channel. Thanks again for watching. Bye. Oh, that was so artificial. What am I, aspartame?